All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope all of you are having a great day so far. I don't know where you're tuning in from, so it could be evening, night. Some of you are really dedicated. We had some folks tuning in basically in the middle of the night for our last webinar. So again, wherever you're tuning in from, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited about this topic today that we're going to be discussing about split testing. Now, the title of this webinar is called Practice Makes Progress, Testing Your Way to Higher Conversions. Testing your way to higher conversions. Now, my name is Jeremiah Alsbrook. I am with the OptinMonster growth team, and our entire role, our entire job is to equip you with all the information you could ever need to be as successful as possible with your OptinMonster account. We want to help you create more sales. We want to help you capture more leads and subscribers, and we want to help you expand your influence. So earlier this year, we started this initiative for our educational webinars where we decided we're going to take one feature and really break that down, talk about it, and then ultimately show you how to put it into practice. Now, one of the best parts about having these hyper-focused webinars, especially for you as the viewer, is these do not last long. This is not going to be an hour and a half long webinar. I'm not going to hold you hostage for that long. We're not going to do any of that kind of stuff today. Because we're focusing on one thing, you're looking at maybe a 20 to 30 minute presentation, depending upon how interaction goes and things like that, right? Because again, we would rather give you succinct information so that you actually know how to use it than give you a ton of information and leave you here confused, okay? That's not what we're shooting for today on the topic of split testing. But to kind of get our minds right in regards to this, I want you to think about a family recipe. All right. Again, I know it seems odd, but I want you to think about a family recipe that's been passed down from generation to generation in your home, and it's a real big hit. Everyone likes it. Now, somewhere along the way, someone had to start that process. And whoever started that process, chances are they did not nail it the first time. So they started crafting this recipe. They wanted to make the best insert blank here, whatever it is, the best pie, the best dessert, the best dish, the best bread, the best cake, whatever. And when they started this process, they didn't get it right exactly. It wasn't incredible at first. So little by little, they changed one ingredient at a time. And then they measured it. Did it taste better? Did it taste worse? Does it need this? Does it need that? And they made these small incremental changes over time that led to big results. And now it's this well-loved recipe that everyone in your family loves. And it's been passed down and it's guarded and you won't tell anyone about it. You guys know what I'm talking about. It feels like every family has at least one of those. I want you to view split testing as your recipe. When it comes to your campaigns on with OptinMonster on your site, that's your recipe, right? And with split testing, little by little, we're going to be able to change that recipe and optimize it so that our conversion rates will get higher and higher as we go until ultimately we feel like we've perfected it. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about three things when it comes to split testing. First of all, we're going to define it. What is A/B split testing? We're going to talk about why A/B testing even matters. So what sort of impact does it actually have? And then thirdly, we're going to show you how to make it happen. So I'm going to take you into the builder and I'm going to show you, if you want to start split testing today, this is what you do. All right. That way you will leave here with a plan of action and you can go implement this stuff immediately. All right. So that's how we're going to tackle this today. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and jump in to the first point. What is A/B split testing? What is A/B split testing? Now, A/B split test is when you test two of your campaigns with a single difference against one another to see which performs better. Now, if you'll notice, I put a little bit of emphasis there on a single difference. And let's talk about that just very quickly. The focus on a single difference is what really allows this to be considered an A/B split test, right? Because you can test, in theory, a bunch of other variables. You can change a bunch of things at one time. But then when the results come back, you truly don't know which variable or which change had the most impact, whether that's positive or negative, right? It's really hard to tell that. But with a true A/B split test, you're changing one thing that's easy to track so that you know whether my conversion rate goes up or down, you know exactly why, because you've only changed one thing. When you start changing a bunch of things at once, it's called multivariate testing. And again, for most people, it's a lot harder to track what's actually making the impact. So today we're going to be focusing on helping you figure out how to implement that A/B split test, that one change. Okay, that's what we're going to be focusing on so that you can track it really, really easily. So the idea is you have campaign A versus campaign B with a single change, and you pit them against one another. They're competing. In a lot of ways, you can think of it as the Thunderdome of marketing, right? You've created a campaign, you want to test it against another campaign, 2 campaigns enter, 1 campaign leaves, and that's your Thunderdome of marketing. And little by little, with each and every test, you're going to be able to determine what is the best strategy for your particular campaign. And some of you might be here today and you've never, ever tried to split test anything, right? And your campaign might not even be performing where you would like it to, and you don't really know where to go from there. Well, today, you can start sending your campaigns into the Thunderdome, so to speak, and figure out what's working, what isn't, how can I make improvements along the way. But let's talk about why that even matters, right? Why does A/B testing even matter? What sort of impact does it actually have? You see, A/B testing isn't just about finding out which campaign performs better. It's about continuously learning from your audience, making informed adjustments, enhancing your strategies to maximize your conversions. It's about making the right small changes that leads to big wins. Now, for some of us, we're just focused on, well, which campaign does better, right? That sounds great. And that's obviously an important part, right? That is the goal. However, it's so important that while we're doing this, while we're split testing, we are keeping great notes, great records along the way, because it's giving us insights into our audience. Why don't they respond well to this? Why did they respond so well to that? Well, I should make a note of that, so in the future, I'll know how to approach them, right? So it's not always as simple as this campaign just does better. It's what did you learn along the way? And that allows us to continue to enhance those strategies and make those small adjustments for big wins. So what I want to do very quickly before we show you how to put this into practice is I want to go through about 3 of our OptinMonster customers that started using split testing to increase their conversions. All right. So the first is going to be what Logic Inbound, which is a digital marketing agency, did at Atlas Workbase. Now, they increased their conversions by 852%. And this is what they started with. They initially started with this particular pop-up that was offering a 30-minute tour. Yes, I want to book a tour. But over time, they started doing split testing. And you want to see where they ended up at after split test, after split test, after split test. They ended up with something that looks like this. Now, obviously, this is after several iterations, right? But what they found was the major factor that made the difference in increasing their conversions after split testing was changing their call to action. So if you'll notice in this first one that I'm showing you right here, it's, do you want to book a 30-minute tour? Now look at it here. Now they're giving you a 3-day trial pass, right? So they realized that by changing that call to action from the 30-minute tour to this free 3-day trial pass, that had the most significant impact on their conversion rate. And of course, the only way you're going to know that is if you're willing to test them and pit them against one another and continue to evolve your campaigns as you go. So for them, that made the most impact, right? It wasn't necessarily adding the image or changing anything like that. What made the most impact over testing and time was the CTA itself, right? Changing from that 30-minute tour to a 3-day trial. All right. And again, they increased their conversions by 852%. So let's move on to another example here, because sometimes these changes don't even have to be that significant. The eczema company doubled their conversion rate on this particular campaign. And when you look at the campaign, you think, okay, that's about as simple as it can get, right? It's not going to get any more simple than that. Get 10% off, sign up for our newsletter to get the coupon code, right? And then you've got your email opt-in right there. So what they did with their split test is they actually tested the functionality of their campaign. And they thought, well, I wonder if this would perform better if we didn't ask for the email address immediately and we just asked them a question. So that's what they did. So here we see the campaign that ended up performing better. If you'll notice, it's the exact same offer. The only thing that's changed is you're now asking a yes or no question. Do you want to save the 10% off? Yes or no, instead of immediately asking for the email. Now, at first glance, we think that's weird. I don't understand how this is performing so much better. But what's interesting with this approach is individuals are more likely to interact with your offers and pop-ups if you just ask them a question and give them yes or no options, right? Than they are to immediately jump and give you their information. Like, do you want to save 10% off? Yeah, absolutely, sure. I'm more likely to say yes to that than I am to immediately give you my email address. But this is where it gets interesting. When someone answers your question and says, yes, I want to save 10% off, it triggers this interesting psychological effect called the Zeigarnik effect. And what that states is an individual who starts a task or a process is more likely to finish it. So they're more likely to follow through and actually finish the task. So we're convincing them to start that process and task by asking this yes or no question. Now, statistically, they're more likely to follow through and give us that information, right? And you can notice that here because in the initial, where we're just asking for the email address, right? That performed at a certain rate, but it doubled when we started asking them the yes or no question, right? And they were able to figure that out by split testing, okay? So let's talk about one more example of a split test here. And this one actually is a process of split tests. And Vital Designs increased their clients' conversion rate from a 3.7%, which I'm not sure why the image is laid out this way, but it is. And you'll notice on the right-hand side, this is an exit intent campaign that triggers whenever a guest was about to leave the site. So they started split testing, and then they iterated to what you see on the left. And then finally, they continued to iterate and split test, and ultimately they landed with what you see in the middle here. So it went from a 3.7% conversion rate. Eventually, they got it to a 4.57 in that process as they tested one little piece at a time. And then they were able to keep testing, and eventually they land at this 5.29% conversion rate. And it's just about those incremental tests along the way. Again, our goal is to test one small thing at a time. You're seeing some gaps here because I don't show you every little iteration. But again, you're testing one small element, one small variable at a time. What performs better? What doesn't, right? And eventually you can go from something like this 3.7 up to a 5.29%, which is excellent, everyone. The average conversion rate is only 2%. So I want to give you some context for some of these numbers that you're seeing. So if the average conversion rate is only 2% and we can get it up to a 5.29% potentially, like what we see with Vital Designs, then yeah, absolutely. Let's get after it. Let's figure out how to make that happen. Okay. And that leads us to our third point today. Again, I told you, I'm going to keep it moving. I'm going to be very mindful of your time, and then we're going to show you how to get into it. Okay. So how do we make it happen? How do we leave here today with the knowledge that we need to start split testing so that we can figure out what works better for our audience? Well, the first thing you have to understand is all the different things that you can test. And I haven't given you an exhaustive list, but I want to give you some examples of things that you could potentially start testing today. All right. The first is going to be your offer. What's your offer? For some of you, it might be that 10% off coupon. Maybe you want to test that against a free shipping offer. Or maybe you have this one specific lead magnet and you've just developed a new one and you think it might be better. So let's test the two lead magnets against each other and see which one appeals more to my audience. Okay, so you can split test that offer. Secondly, you can split test your campaign design, the imagery itself. So you're not really messing with the copy and all of that. You're just messing with the design. Maybe this image, due to color psychology, works better than this image, right? So you can start testing out your designs with split testing as well. And then we've got buttons. Now, I'll be honest. When it comes to buttons in my brain, a button is a button is a button, or so I thought. And yet, the more I'm in the marketing space, the more I've realized, wow, buttons really do matter. In fact, I'm going to share with you some interesting research that just came out, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, here in a moment on the next slide, regarding buttons themselves, right? Whether it's the copy on that button, the color of that button, the shape, whatever it might be, buttons matter. And you can split test those as well. Maybe it's the copy in general. You want to reword your particular CTA, right? So again, your offer is not really changing, but the way you're wording it is going to change. Which one impacts your audience the most? Then you can maybe test your social proof, right? Let's say in your particular campaigns, you're sharing testimonials or case studies from your audience or testimonials in some way, right? So what you're going to do in that situation is test this testimonial versus this testimonial and see which one really resonates with your audience. And then lastly, functionality, right? And that's what the eczema company did. We saw that in just a few slides ago, how the eczema company tested a standard opt-in versus a yes or no two-step opt-in. And you can do that as well. So how ultimately do we make that happen? How do we hop in and make it happen? All right. Before I get into OptinMonster and give you that walkthrough, I told you I teased some information I wanted to share with you. This was incredible to me, but the Journal of Consumer Research just found out through a bunch of testing that rounded buttons in their tests receive 17 to 55% more clicks compared to their squared off counterparts. That's the impact a split test can make. Just the shape of a button. That's crazy, right? So to receive 17 to 55% more clicks just because the shape of a button is mind-boggling. But you know what? If you guys go to this little website called Amazon, you'll notice there's rounded off buttons everywhere. And you better believe they've done their market research. They've got teams on this. They're figuring out what works and what doesn't. So for some of you, maybe that's your first test. When you leave here today, you're thinking, ooh, I need to at least try that rounded button, if nothing else, right? And see how it works for you. Okay, so let's jump into the builder now and let me show you how you can create your split tests on your campaigns. Okay, I did get a private message about a question. Ahmed, I will answer your question in just a moment once I get through the walkthrough here, because we're going to have a time for Q&A, and I promise I'll address that question. I won't leave you hanging. All right, so let's jump into OptinMonster. Let's give you the walkthrough. Let's create a split test or two so you know how this works. All right, let me share my screen with you. All right, so here you see inside my dashboard. Okay, so once we're inside the dashboard, let's assume that this split test webinar campaign that you see right here is my campaign. Let's also assume that it's live on my site. So these are tests. That's why you don't see it live. But we've created this campaign. This is a template, mind you. I haven't customized anything. And let's say this is live on our site. Let's say we want to determine if the rounded buttons make sense. We're going to split test that. So we're going to find the campaign we want to split test on our list. We're going to click it. Over here on the right-hand side, assuming it's live, you're going to see visitors, conversions, conversion rate, right? And that helps show you the kind of traffic that particular pop-up is seeing. For example, let's see if I can find one that gets any traffic here. So for example, this one right here, okay? You'll see this one has had 101 visitors. It's had 4 conversions. So its conversion rate is 3.96%. So those are numbers that you will see assuming your campaign is live, All right, so let's go back to our test ones here. So we've got this split test campaign, and we want to test the shape of that button. So what we're going to do is we're going to click this button right here that says create split test. It looks like a fork in the road. We're going to click that. Now we can name whatever our split test is going to be. So let's say split test webinar variant. Okay, that's our new campaign name. Then we have a spot for notes. Here is where it's really important to take note of the changes you're making so that you can track that along the way, right? Because again, this isn't just important for this campaign. This could be important for any future campaign as well. So we want to say on our notes that we're testing rounded button. Okay, so now that's going to be there in that campaign. We're going to click create a split test, and it's going to duplicate that campaign. So everything the first one had, it will duplicate everything, including the display rules. It is an exact copy. All right. Now what we want to do is make our first change. So for the sake of this and what we've put in our notes, let's go grab our button. So we'll click that button. We'll come over here on the left-hand side. We're going to click the Advanced tab. All right. Under that Advanced tab, we're going to scroll down for our submit button style. And that's what this is. This is our submit button. So we're going to click that style. And now we can change the button color. We can change the font. We can change all of that. But again, we want to A/B test. So let's just test one thing at a time. So we're going to go down to rounded corners right here. We're going to click rounded corners. We've got some options. We can customize it for pixels and make our own type of rounded corner. We could say slightly rounded, which you'll notice it barely shows up. Or we can do capsule round. Let's stick with capsule round just for the sake of this test. Okay, so that's it. That's the one change we're making. That's what allows us to consider this an A/B test. Once that's done, we're going to click save. That's all we're going to do. We're going to click save. Now, over time, what's going to happen is, as your guests navigate to your site, wherever your primary campaign is supposed to show, so whatever your display rules are set up, as long as you haven't changed anything on your second campaign, what's going to happen is they are randomly shown one of these two campaigns. It's completely random, so they're going to either see the squared off button or they're going to see the circular button. And over time, you're able to determine which one really converts well. Now, here's the thing. The more impressions you can have, the better. Now, for some of you, you might not get that much traffic. And if you don't get a lot of traffic, it makes split testing efficiently extremely difficult. Because let's say your sample size is like 20 impressions, okay? At that point, it's really hard to make an educated guess on what works and what doesn't, okay? Just because, again, your sample size is so small. Now, does that mean that it's completely useless? Not necessarily, but I think your degree of certainty is going to be a lot lower, right? Just due to your level of impression. So ideally, you want to let these split tests run to get a certain degree of confidence in whatever you're testing. So for example, let's say I average, I'm just throwing out numbers here. Let's say I average 3,000 sessions a month on my site. Okay. I allow this split test to run until it's got, let's say 1,000, let's say 1,500 impressions. Okay. Between these two campaigns. So that's about half of the traffic I see in a given month. At that point, I feel a little bit more confident going with whatever I'm seeing, right? Let's say that the rounded buttons are in fact performing 2% higher than the squared off buttons. Well, if I've got 750 impressions to 800 impressions, then I'm a lot more confident in making that call, right? Obviously, the longer I let it run, the better. So you have to kind of determine that based upon your traffic in general, how long you should let this run to really be able to choose wisely, okay? So again, I'm not saying turn this on and then turn it off within a 24-hour period. Now, there are exceptions to that. Don't get me wrong. I've seen some weird outliers where someone will make a change And that second campaign, the new campaign they're split testing, just absolutely bombs, right? It just doesn't do anything. But again, that's assuming they got a decent amount of impressions very quickly. If you don't have a lot of impressions quickly, I hesitate to tell you to make choices quickly. Okay, give it time, allow the stats to do their work so that then you have more proper analytics to make a decision from. Okay, but let's say hypothetically this button worked best. Let's say the rounded off button did perform better, just like the Journal of Research found. Okay, so what we're going to do then is we're going to come up here and we're going to click Make Primary. So what that's going to do now is it is going to kick it up to being the primary campaign. And let's say, okay, now that we've done that, let's go ahead and get rid of our initial. So we're going to click delete on that because it doesn't perform as well. So we're done. We've gotten rid of it. Okay. Now let's say we want to run a test like the eczema company. All right. So how do we do that? How do we actually test functionality where we want that yes or no approach now versus something like this standard approach? So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and once again, create a split test, and it's going to clone everything. So split test webinar variant, we can call this one split test webinar yes, no. We'll call it this one yes, no. Our notes, we are testing the yes, no view, okay, to see if this works better. So we're now going to click create split test. Again, everything is duplicated. This is an exact clone, and we want to change one specific thing. All right. So what we want to do then is test that functionality. So let's go down here to this yes or no tab you see right here. We're going to click it. We're going to click enable yes or no view. Now, if you'll notice here on this yes or no view, it still has the squared off buttons, but we want to test one thing. Just one thing. And this is where it can get a little weird, but we're going to make the call because our parent campaign has the rounded off buttons. So what we're going to do is we're going to assume rounded off buttons still work. We're not going to change that. So we want to go over here, click this, and ultimately, excuse me, pardon me there. We want to look at our advanced tab again, and we want to change that yes button styling because again, we want it to match. We don't want to really be changing anything other than one particular variable at a time. So we want to change the corners. We're going to go capsule round. Okay. All right. And then we want to do our no button styling. Again, we want to say capsule round. And now the only thing that's going to be different is this yes or no approach. That's it. That's the only thing we're testing. All right. So once we've got all that changed, we're now going to click save again. And assuming the parent campaign is published, it's going to once again randomly choose which campaign is shown to your guests. All right. So again, over time, now you're going to be able to figure out, okay, we know the rounded corners do great, but is the yes or no approach even better with rounded corners? Right. And over time, through impressions, as you see your analytics, you're going to be able to make wiser decisions. And you're going to be able to, again, see which campaign emerges from your proverbial Thunderdome, right? Which one is the last one standing? Which one performs best? And this same principle applies to any campaign type. I know I'm showing you standard pop-ups, but it works on every other campaign type. You do it the exact same way. Okay, so whether that's a slide in, floating bar, inline, whatever it is, it works the exact same way in the builder. You find the campaign you want to split test, you click that split test button, and you make your single changes. All right. And again, keep in mind, in order to split test this, all you have to do is activate the parent campaign. So you don't have to go down and like turn on the split test campaign. All you have to do is turn on the parent, the primary campaign, and then the split test will start. Okay. So that is very quickly how you're going to be able to set this up in OptinMonster once you leave here today. So let me go ahead and hop back into my slideshow. It always shuts down on me when I screen share. Now, one thing I want to encourage you to do is keep testing regularly. Even if you find a winner today, your audience changes, trends shift, and what worked once might not work forever. So if you are regularly testing, it ensures that your campaigns stay fresh and effective. Because some of us, and this is me included, I've got a campaign on my dad's website. I haven't changed that thing probably since it went live. Now, granted, it's an announcement bar, so it's not like it's that significant. But how many of us do that as well on our own sites, where we just over time, we just assume that's the conversion rate we're going to get. It's good enough, right? Or we get distracted, or we get busy and we've got other things going on, right? But if we continue to split test every so often, it gives us the confidence that we're either continuing to head in the right direction, or we can change it and start heading in a better direction. Okay. And that's how you're going to split test your way to higher conversions with OptinMonster. All right. So thank you so much for being here today. For those of you that are here and want to put this into practice, it does require a plus plan or higher. And if for some reason you don't have one, as a thank you, I want to give you an additional 20% off coupon that you can use on a new plan or an upgrade if you need to get to that plus plan. If you already have a plus plan or higher, you're good to go. But if you want something more, if you want more impressions, more features, you can use that coupon code JP20 for your upgrades as well. As a matter of fact, what I'll do is before we do our Q&A, I'll go ahead and have this offer show up on your screen. So if you need a new plan, if somehow you made it to this webinar and you don't have an OptinMonster plan, you can click that green button to get started. Just use the coupon code JP20 to save an additional 20% off. All right. Now let's go ahead and shift to a time for Q&A. If you guys are here and you have any questions, I'll hang around for a few more moments. You guys can drop them in the chat, use the Q&A button, do whatever you need to, and that'll be great. One question I do want to address is from Ahmed. He sent it to me. He asked what to do if your website has a few visitors. We're talking like single digit to barely double digit visitors. Does this approach work? I kind of hit that a little bit when we were doing our walkthrough on the analytics itself. One thing I want to say is I hesitate to say that it's super beneficial if your website's visitors are in that like double digit range. It's going to be really hard to determine any choices that you've made or changes that you've made are accurate at that rate. So I think that's one thing. To be perfectly honest with you, with the traffic at that rate, it's hard for me to say it will be effective. In theory, could it? Could you guess? Potentially, sure. But I think your degree of confidence is going to be a lot lower if you can't crank your impressions up as you're making those changes. Let's see. How do you turn off the cookie function so that the ad shows up even if they visited the site before? That's a good question. So let me go ahead. I'll share my screen again just to show you exactly where you can find that, Tiffany. And that way you'll leave there and know exactly what to do. All right. So give me just a second to screen share with you once more. Let's see. So here we are back in the builder. So let me just use these same campaigns we've been doing. So you're going to go into your display rules tab up here. So here's your designer. We're going to click display rules. All right. So here under display rules, we're going to go down here. We're seeing a summary. All right. What we want to do is we want to change that. Okay. So we're going to go down. Our conditions are our initial rules. Then we see our actions. So when your campaign is displayed, you got some monster effects here if you would like. But this is what you're going to be looking at, Tiffany, right here. After your campaign is displayed, here's your cookie settings. So this is where you're going to change those cookie settings for that specific campaign. So for example, if it's closed but not converted, show it again. That's probably the one that you're talking about right now. So if they've seen it and they come back to your site, they won't see it again for 30 days. So what you can do is you can change that after X days to any number of days you want, or you can click the drop down and come down and say on their next visit to the site. So again, if they see it, they don't convert and they come back, they're going to see that. Now, there is a little bit of a time delay there. Like if they leave your site and then immediately come back, that cookie hasn't quite reset yet. But again, usually speaking, this is more than enough. If they come back in a few hours, or if they come back an hour later, this should trigger if they haven't converted. All right. So I think that's probably what you're looking for right there. Again, that's if it is closed but not converted, show it again on their next visit to the site. Okay. Let me see here. Does that answer your question, Tiffany? Hopefully that does. Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that, Tiffany. Well, I love that you're loving it. You know, that's always good to hear. Are there any other questions that I can help address today before we wrap this thing up? I told you I wouldn't keep you hostage for long, everybody. So I want to make sure to keep that in mind. But if you've got questions, I've got time. Stop sharing there. All right. Well, it looks like no more questions are coming through. So I want to say thank you for being here today, everyone. You guys have been great. Hopefully this gives you the confidence you need to leave here and start testing yourself and send 2 campaigns into that marketing Thunderdome. Remember, 2 campaigns enter, 1 campaign leaves. I don't know why. I just think that's super cool. But I hope all of you have a fantastic day. If you end up with any more questions, feel free to reach out to me via the emails you're receiving. Those should come straight to my inbox, and I'll answer them as soon as possible. But I hope all of you have a fantastic week. You guys take it easy, and I can't wait to hear some of your success stories about how split testing works out for you. Bye, everybody.